My name is Emily, I'm from Seattle. I'm 27 years old, and I've always believed in love at first sight. I met Josh 2 years ago in a coffee shop. He was surrounded by books, drinking black coffee, and laughing about something he was reading. I just walked up to him and said, "You're smiling too loudly, share the joke." And that's how our story began, with that silly phrase. Josh was perfect. Reliable, calm, with a kind heart. We moved in together after 6 months, and 8 months later, he proposed. I agreed without hesitation. It seemed like my fairy tale. Everything didn't go according to plan when I started a new job at a PR agency. That's where I met Leah. She was my mentor, stylish, confident, with a subtle ironic smile. She was only a couple of years older than me, but she seemed so mature, so real to me. I felt alive with her. She joked on the edge, saying that life was too short for perfect men and predictable love. I was laughing. And then I started to wonder if she was right. Working with Leah was a breath of air for me. We stayed late at the office, chatting at the bar after a hard day. I started to notice that I was thinking about her more often than I was thinking about Josh. I found myself texting her first, saying I wanted to know how she slept and what her plans were. Josh began to feel that I was changing. He asked if I was tired and hugged me more often, but I felt like I was moving away. I was ashamed. I loved Josh, but Leah, she attracted me like a moth's fire. One day, Leah and I went on a business trip to San Francisco. It was a regular trip, meetings, presentations, coffee. But that night, after dinner, we went for a walk. It was foggy in the city, everything seemed cinematic. We stopped at the bridge, and she said, "You're living someone else's life, Emily. When will you start writing your own?" It was a click. I felt that I had already crossed the line. I didn't want to come back. We were together that night. No vulgarities, no details. But it was treason. Emotional. The real one. I returned home, and Josh was waiting for me with a glass of wine and a catalog of wedding rings. He was smiling, he believed in us. And I felt like a traitor. His every "I love you" hurt. I tried to forget San Francisco, but Leah was writing. She asked if I had changed my mind. I didn't know what I wanted. I had the perfect fiancé and a heart that yearned for someone who was just an illusion of freedom. I was sick of lying. But telling the truth meant destroying everything. 3 days before the wedding, I couldn't stand it. I told Josh the truth. All. He looked at me like I was dead. I'll never forget his silence. He didn't scream, he didn't accuse. He just left. It was as if he had turned off our story in one motion. I was left in our apartment, alone, with a dress in the closet and invitations on the table. I thought I'd feel relieved. But instead, there is emptiness. Absolutely. It's cold. Hopeless. It's been 6 months. I'm not with Josh, I'm not with Leah. She left the agency a week after the wedding, which I canceled. I couldn't be with her. Not because she didn't want to, but because she understood. I used it as an escape route. But now I'm alone. And do you know what the scariest thing is? Not loss, not loneliness. And the fact that I don't recognize myself in the mirror. Who am I now? The girl who dreamed of love? Or a woman who ruined her life for something she didn't even fully believe in? If you're facing a choice right now, listen to yourself. Not someone, not fashion, not someone's philosophy. Myself. Sometimes we confuse the desire to escape with true love. Sometimes we destroy what was good in pursuit of what seems alive. I don't regret choosing the truth. But I regret that I didn't say it before, to myself, to him, and even to Leah. If I'd been honest, maybe things would have been different. I've been thinking for a long time how to describe the state I'm in. It's not just loneliness. It's when you wake up in the morning and you don't want to open your eyes because nothing is waiting. I didn't want to meet my friends, and I ignored my parents' calls. Work has become a chore. There's silence without Josh. Without Leah, there is no spark. I put the wedding dress in a box and put it in the pantry. Sometimes she would take it out, look at it, and say to herself, "You're not bad. You're just lost." I repeated it until I began to believe at least a little. 2 months later, for the first time, I left home not only for work. I signed up for a photography course. Just to keep my hands and brain occupied. There I met a girl named Sarah. It was light. Not in terms of appearance, but in terms of energy. Sarah didn't ask why my eyes were so sad. She just shared about her parents' divorce, about the pain, about how therapy had saved her. And I realized, I'm not alone. Suffering alone is not the way to recovery. I started talking. And with each story, it became a little easier inside. One evening, I returned home and saw a letter. Real, paper. From Josh. My heart skipped a beat. I didn't know whether to open it. But she opened it anyway. He wrote briefly. Without reproaches. He said he forgave me, but he couldn't come back. He said he understood now. I was trying to be someone I wasn't. And he added, I hope you find that Emily who doesn't have to hide from anyone, not from me, not from herself. I was crying. Long. Not because he's gone. It's because he let me go prettier than I deserved. I didn't expect to hear about Leah again. But she did. Not hi, not how are you, but just, are you ready to talk? I did not know. But she answered, come over. We met in a cafe where everything once began, those conversations, glances, evening laughs. She said she was lost back in San Francisco, too. That she wasn't looking for me, but was looking for a way out of her boring, predictable life. And that she might have dragged me into her drama without thinking about the consequences. We both apologized. Not for feelings, but for the way we treated each other. It was the first really grown-up conversation in my life. I didn't dream about movies anymore. I wasn't looking for passion. I was looking for silence inside myself. A calmness in which you don't want to run or prove yourself. I became comfortable being alone. I've learned to drink coffee and not think about who's going to sit across from me. I wasn't expecting any messages. I was just living. And at some point I noticed that I was smiling again. For no reason. Just because the day has started and the sun is out the window. These were tiny victories. But I treasured each of them like a jewel. I invited Sarah over for dinner, just as a friend. We laughed, chatted, ate pasta, and shared life stories. And then, towards midnight, she suddenly said, have you ever thought that you could be with a woman? Not as an escape, but as a choice? I stopped talking. Not because she was scared, but because she didn't know what to say. I didn't know if I was ready to open up again. But her question remained inside. Not like pressure. But as an opportunity. It's been 11 months since I canceled the wedding. I'm not the Emily I used to be. But not the one that was at the time of the betrayal. I'm changing. Every day. Sometimes backwards, sometimes forwards. I'm not looking for excuses, I'm not looking for love. I'm learning to accept myself. With all the errors. With all the fears. Sometimes we destroy everything to build something real. I do not know where I will be in a year. But now I know who I don't want to be. And that's a lot. I used to think that trust was a feeling. That it arises between two people like a flash, like chemistry. But now I understand that trust is a choice. Every day. When you're not checking your phone messages. When you're not asking a question with a subtext. When you don't run, but stay. I started over with Sarah. We weren't a couple. They didn't call themselves anyone. They were just sharing about the past, the pain, the hopes. One day she asked if I could be with a man who knows all my darkness. I was scared. But she said, if he stays, it means he can become the light. In the past, traveling was something shared with Josh, with friends, with colleagues. But at some point I decided to go alone to Oregon, to the ocean. I rented a beach house, turned off notifications, and just breathed. I was silent for 3 days. I wrote in my diary, read books, and watched the waves. You know what the strangest thing is? I wasn't lonely. I was with myself, but in a good way. For the first time, I wasn't running away from loneliness, I was accepting it. There, by the water, I truly forgave myself. Not completely, but for the first time, sincerely. My relationship with my parents has always been careful. Polite. Without excessive openness. Mom didn't understand why I broke up with Josh. It was a failure for her, a wedding that was cancelled. The status I've lost. But one day I went to see her. Without filters. She just said, "Mom, I've done a lot of stupid things. But they were mine. I can't live for the sake of how things should look anymore." She was silent. And then she said a phrase that I will remember all my life: "I also lived a different life for many years." We cried that night. Not because it hurts. But because it became easier. It was unexpected. We were sitting on the balcony, drinking tea, looking at the night city. And suddenly Sarah said, "I do not know who we will be. But I want to be with you. In any role. If you want, as a friend. As much as you want." I stared at her and didn't know how to respond. Not because I didn't want to. But because she was afraid. I asked, "Aren't you afraid that I'll run away again?" She smiled, "I'm afraid. But I still choose to try it." And at that moment, I felt the last wall inside me crumble. Because she didn't push. She chose. And I was free to choose too.